All right. Hi, I am Team 7, and we will be presenting, or I will be presenting, Geobuki BBQ, the restaurant we've created for this. Now, I did not work alone on this project, but I'll be the only one presenting it today. My partner, Morgan Wade, she unfortunately fell ill today and is not able to present. She's not feeling well enough to do it. But I should be able to give you guys a great understanding of what we've created, and I'll give her credit where she did her work. She did a lot for this. But I am Kylan Fedje. I'm a history major at Arizona State University, one of the few teams not based out of Florida. And I'll be graduating in spring of next year. So Geobuki BBQ will provide a unique dining experience that unites family, friends, and strangers to take part in an epic adventure to rescue the magical companions of the 17th century Korean sailing crew. Sorry. The guests will arrive and be presented with our restaurant, which is built inside a Korean turtle ship, or a habuksun, used by the Korean Navy during the Joseon dynasty. Not sure if I got that pronunciation right. As they arrive, they will be handed AR glasses by a host at the entrance, and they will explain anything relevant to the background of the ship, it's kind of set in a fictional village, so of the story related to that, and all of this in character. But one element of the habuksun that is unique is the dragon head at the bow of the ship, which when it was in use, would breathe smoke to help give the ship cover when it was engaged in battle. But ours has been a bit retooled to more just breathe fire as a showpiece, which will also serve as the first and last call for guests before they are brought in for their reservation time. Guests will enter the experience and will be greeted with a view similar to what you see here. The crew will be milling about as guests are being seated, and the captain will remain in his quarters, seen in the blueprint here right by the kitchen, until the dinner experience is set to begin. The screens at each table, the blue windows you see there in the image above, show the environment outside of the ship, a simulated environment. It is not the actual, because the ship will be heading out to sea, but we want to keep the ship docked in port. Then once the ship is ready to embark, the captain will emerge from his quarters and will give a speech welcoming them to the ship and explaining the mission, which in this case is the village here has recently suffered a tsunami, a typhoon rather, that has swept many of the village's animals and spirit creatures out to sea. So now the ship, being one of the few that managed to survive the storm, has been hired out by the remaining spirits, or they're working in collaboration with the spirits, to help rescue the others lost at sea. And now the captain himself, Captain Yong Min, is a former naval officer with the Korean Navy, who has since retired and taken up the position of being a restaurateur. And his loyal crew, the people who will be serving the guests as they eat, they are made up of people who once served under him and enjoyed the experience so much that they've decided to come back and work for him in his new restaurant. Our restaurant is a Korean barbecue restaurant, so it has a lot of this typical fare of Korean barbecue. It is an all-you-can-eat model, so guests will be allowed to order as much food as they please, which will play into the game, which I will describe here. The game centers around gachapon mechanics while also integrating NFC and AR technology. Food is delivered to the guests by waitstaff, and the plates that they eat off will be returned in the slot at the end of the table, seen in the previous slide here. Which will, once enough plates have been returned, guests will have the opportunity to try and catch some of the creatures lost at sea using the cannons placed at the end of the table. They're able to see through the windows where the creature is, but they won't exactly see what kind of creature it is. Everyone at the table will have a chance to fire the cannon at least once during the meal and see what creatures they've saved. Guests will see what creatures they've saved in the window, and they will see an animation of the creature being housed safely inside a totem, similar to what you see here with the Nintendo Amiibo figures, although it will resemble a bit more and form the statues you see over on the right, which will then be housed inside of a small ball that will be rolled out to the table, similar to how a gachapon machine delivers its prizes. Once they have the totem, which will be the NFC figures, they'll be able to place it on a portal at the end of the table, which will allow the creature to appear before them in the restaurant using the AR technology, the AR glasses they were given as they entered to help bring the experience to life. Creatures will go through a series of animations for a few minutes before moving off to some other part of the ship, and the meal will continue, and guests will be able to have these repeat experiences, getting different creatures each time. We will also have a few different live entertainment experiences throughout the restaurant. We'll have performances of folk music. The instrument you see here on the left is the haegeum, which is a stringed instrument, a type of zither, traditional to Korean folk music. We'll also have stories being told using the pansori style of a vocalist and a drum accompaniment, which will allow the guests some immersion into the space and into the time period of this traditional Joseon era Korean naval ship. By the end of the experience, before the end of the experience, there will be a meter at the middle of the ship that will fill up as guests return their plates and as they rescue different animals and creatures. By the end of the experience, it will have filled up to be about 2/3 of the way full. And at this point, the captain will announce that after a few more creatures are saved, they'll be ready to return home. But just as people are starting to get a little comfortable, a final boss spirit will appear, a sort of grand finale, which this one will be one that is either a bit larger or more hostile. Some of the examples of these you can see here, the nine-tailed fox or the Korean dragon. These are the kinds of creatures guests will encounter here. They will need to work together. The whole ship will need to work together to bring in this last creature, which will help to fill up the last of the meter. And then at that point, they'll be able to capture their spirit and then return safely home. The captain will give a celebratory speech at the end of the expedition and now declare that they are returning home. At this point, as the ship is returning to harbor, again, this is all happening. All of the movement you are seeing here is happening in the screens in the simulated environment. The crew will go around and start clearing tables and taking care of everyone's checks. The bar will also give its last call for drink orders, and the whole process will finish by the time the ship returns to port. Once the ship arrives in port, the captain will give one last thanks to everyone for helping, and says that because of them, the spirits and animals of the village can now safely return home. Once everything has been taken care of, guests will leave the restaurant with the totems that they've taken, the NFC figures that they've earned during a meal, and will return their AR glasses at the host on their way out. Now, this will not exclusively be this will not be the same experience at all times of day, since the dinner option will be on a reservation system. There'll be about 2-hour time blocks, and with different game modes at different capacities. Then at lunch, there will be 1-hour time blocks, a walk-up situation, but these will be set to a single play mode, so it won't have the full story of everyone working together with the whole grand finale. But guests will still be able to save creatures and take their NFC totems home with them. Thank you for listening. That is Geobuki BBQ.
Thank you so much. All right, judges, clarifying questions, anything? Go ahead and take your time to write down your comments now, and when you're ready, we'll keep going.